Welcome to Trending in Education. We're coming at you live here at South by Southwest EDU out of Austin. I'm joined today by Dana Stephenson, who's the co-founder, CEO of a company called Riipen, addressing some of the experience gap problems we're facing on the workforce side and also in higher ed. Dana, welcome to Trending in Education.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excited to be here in person.
Absolutely.
A little bit different. There's a lovely South by Southwest EDU banner up here.
Got the energy of the conference around us.
Yeah, exactly. We always, when we're talking to somebody on the show, we always like to start with your origin story, get our listeners acquainted with who you are in your own words. So let us know who you are.
Sure. Well, my name is Dana Stephenson. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Riipen. At Riipen, we're building the world's largest and fastest growing work-based learning marketplace, where we connect students to companies for short-term skill-specific projects. Students get experience, they gain professional connections, and they find the job they love, and companies, they use it to gain fresh insights for the next generation of learners, leaders, and change makers, and of course, build and diversify the talent pipeline, which is really exciting. So the origin story, to tell you how we all got started, I really have to take you back to university. So my business partner and I, this is a Canadian company. We're both Canadian. We met at the University of Victoria on beautiful Vancouver Island in British Columbia. We were in the business program there, and we were a couple of years older than everybody else. So we had taken a bit of a different path than most of the students in that program. We worked through high school. We took a year off after high school, worked through our education pathway, trying to pay off as much of our debt as possible and graduate without debt. And in that program, there was a co-op. So I'm sure you're familiar with Northeastern's co-op model. Yep, absolutely. In Canada, you may or may not know, but co-op is huge.
Okay.
It's extremely well funded. Most post-secondary institutions across Canada have co-op programs. And it was a national association. It's really fantastic programs. We, of course, because we had a lot of work experience, by the time we got to that, we were able to get our first co-op. It was an extremely valuable experience. I think we know now from the research from Strata Education and Burning Glass, Talent Disrupted, that these are some of the most highest ROI, high impact experience that you can get during your education pathway. We've certainly felt the same, but we quickly realized that many of our peers were facing barriers to getting that experience. Many of our peers kept sort of struggling and saying, they just didn't, we were shocked to find out how many people were already in their third year of university and didn't have any work experience. They focused on extracurriculars and didn't actually have, let alone even any relevant experience. So, they kept just saying over and over again, if I could just get my foot in the door, if I could just get that first experience, then I know that I could prove myself and I can get the next one. And we saw that over and over again. Once students got that first experience, the doors opened to more and more opportunities. 100%. And so we thought to ourselves, there's got to be a better way. How can we help students get experiences earlier on, high quality experiences like this earlier on, and throughout their entire education pathway, so that if they do want to get the co-op and they do want to get the paid internship, they've got the experience to open those doors. And if that's not the right pathway for them, they'll still have the experience by the time they graduate to land.
One of the hidden values of internship-like experiences is that you might find out what you don't want to hear.
100%. And that was certainly my business partner, Dave's, had an experience like that. And I would say I certainly had that experience myself. And that is one of the most valuable experiences I think that most folks get through it. That you need that exposure. You need to gain, we call it career clarity. You need this kind of exposure to really understand what you want to do. And so just to kind of, fast forward a little bit, we were passionate about the idea. We were trying to figure out what kind of experience would be valuable to students. We started talking to a ton of companies. And of course, at this point, we're still focused on the more traditional internship and co-op model. Well, we came in, as we talked to more of these organizations, there was a lot of barriers. I don't have the infrastructure. I don't have the time. I don't have the resources, especially the smaller organizations. But if you came to those same organizations and you asked them, do you have a project? What kind of challenges are you facing? What opportunities what are your goals for this year? All of a sudden, this huge list of projects started coming out. And we had this amazing opportunity where we had a faculty member. I still remember like it was yesterday. We were in a strategy course. He got up in front of the class and he took out a case study, downloaded from Harvard Business Review and ripped it up in front of the class and drew it out and said, this year, we're going to have a real CEO come in and you're going to work on a real live project. And that was just mind blowing to us. We were kind of working on this project-based model with companies, and all of a sudden it clicked. If we get the project-based experiences into the classroom where the students are already captivated, where it's 4 course credit, we can guarantee that every student in that class, no matter what their background is, no matter what connections their parents have, no matter what their resume says, everyone is going to get access to that experience. Now, unfortunately,
It solves the relevance problem, which is something you hear all the time from like, K-12
right,
on through the rest of your career, on your educational career.
uh,
Is like, why am I learning this? What is it? In this case, it's a real problem.
exactly. And so, one of the things that we talk a lot about, and what our partners will express often, faculty members, is that they get this feedback loop. As they do projects, employers are providing feedback on the curriculum. They're providing feedback on the students, and you can take that feedback and better align your curriculum with the needs of industry to make sure that you're setting your students up for success when you graduate.
Yeah. And you're getting buy-in from, like, it's valuable to both the enterprise and to the higher ed institution. What's in it for them?
Yeah, great question. So I think for the student, it's pretty obvious.
There's a lot of talk about an experience gap, and there's a lot of generational stuff around Gen Z not really being ready
Mm.
to do work on the other side. And you're addressing all of that, and plus tuning your career path. There's plenty of benefit.
Absolutely. So we're getting the students early, giving them exposure, giving them experience, building the social capital, building the professional connections, building up their portfolio. They actually get skills that are tagged to the experience. They actually get those verified and validated by employers. They come onto their portfolio. They can get their projects up onto their LinkedIn. So they're immediately 2 steps ahead of there's huge benefits to the students. Now, when it comes to the employer, there's a couple things that we noticed that if you're a much larger employer, they're typically looking at talent first, giving back, supporting the next generation of leaders. The third one is actually looking at the project work. Like, what am I actually going to get out of this? What's interesting is that if we go to smaller businesses, which we work a lot with, we're really excited about helping higher education institutions build a network of organizations in their own local community. Small businesses, micro businesses, nonprofits, startups want to engage with a post-secondary institution.
Those organizations don't have the bandwidth. Like a bigger organization is going to have an internship lead or a workforce development, but like a small startup or community-based organization, it's not really going to have that.
They have no infrastructure. They love the concept, but where are they going to start? The traditional internship, the commitment that you have to make, the recruitment process, the payroll, all of these things. This is just a lot of added extra effort and work. But when you come to a project, of course, like we were talking about earlier, it's an enormous amount of friction.
And what about the university side?
The university side, they're looking for, simply put, most higher education institutions, especially in this climate right now, are looking to increase access to high quality, high impact experiences. They know the prospective students, their parents. They know that adult learners who are looking to go back and reskill and upskill, they want to enter into an education or training program that's going to lead to a good paying job. So there's no surprise that one of the first things that you hear over and over again from prospective students is, do you have an internship program? What are you doing for career prep? Are you going to give me a work experience?
Yeah, I just heard recently Northeastern, who's kind of like the reader on the co-op side, is now more selective than Dartmouth.
They've differentiated themselves extremely well. The rest of higher ed is trying to look at how do we replicate these programs. What they quickly realize, because we work with Northeastern, they have an amazing co-op program. What most people don't realize about Northeastern is they also actually have an amazing project-based learning program as well. So they do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of project-based learning experiences while earlier on and throughout the student's education pathway to help support them, same problem, help support them early on so they can land that co-op. So the institution is very much looking for, how do I differentiate? How can I demonstrate to prospective students that I'm going to offer these kinds of experiences? How can I improve retention? Because as a student, I can better connect my learning to the real world. I understand where my education pathway is going. And then ultimately demonstrate better employment outcomes, which of course are the success stories that come out of that are fantastic for attracting more learners. An interesting thing that we're seeing with a lot of our higher education institutions as well is they really also want to measure their impact, not just their impact on the learners, but also their impact on their community, impact on organizations within their community. All of our projects on Riipen, we can have them tagged by the UN SDGs. And a lot of our schools, that's very meaningful for them. And so you can really see this generation, I think you're just talking about this generation, they really want to find meaning in their work. So yes, they want to be employable. The employment and income is really important to them, but they want to find meaning in their work. And so it's really exciting for them to find these companies, find these organizations who are doing meaningful work, and they can actually be contributing to their community and helping solve these challenges these organizations are facing in their community and around the world.
And I've heard in higher ed, like almost like an evolution from initially it was about who are you admitting, how representative is your cohort and who are you working with. Then it went to retention and completion. And, the culmination of a lot of that is then getting that first good job. Been around since
2012 when we had that classroom project. This is a company that was built by students about helping students get projects by students who got a project in the classroom. That was in 2012. We launched our first 2 schools in 2016. There's a bit of a gap there where we graduated, worked full time, had this on the side. But then, since 2017, which is when we actually launched our first technology platform, we've delivered over 275,000 work and integrated learning experiences through this model. We have a network of over 45,000 employers, work with over 8,000 educators across 600 education and training organizations. So doing a lot of workforce development work now as well.
The structure that your platform and your approach provides is really valuable, certainly to students and employers, but also on the higher ed side and on the instructor side, getting something that is manageable, structured, and completable is something that, frequently there is a disconnect in higher ed around that.
Yeah. So going a little bit back to our story, how we started. So when we first went out to faculty members with this concept, because the idea was, how do we get, why isn't every class like this? The challenge that we kept hearing over and over again was, I love the concept. I would love to offer this for my students. Where am I going to find the time? How am I going to find the companies? How am I going to design this? How am I going to ensure that it aligns with the learning objectives of my course? And so we thought to ourselves, well, what if we can build, we have got the employers who are excited, also who don't have the infrastructure. We have the schools that are excited on the infrastructure. What if we could build that infrastructure? We could, build the platform that would help support that. And so a huge part of what we do is we actually help employers design project-based experiences that align with their business and talent needs, but are designed in a way that create an authentic learning experience. That's really critical here. These are going to be embedded into curriculum. These are going to be offered to students as part of a course. They have to know, and the expectations have to be set, that this is an authentic learning experience. This is part of the course. And on the flip side of that, we have to help educators design an experience that aligns with their learning objectives, but also resonates with employers. It has to be exciting to employers. They have to feel like they're going to get something out of it and be exposed to talent as part of these programs. So we kind of help them speak the same language. Then we help with a little bit of a co-creation. So they're engaging together, adapting the project to make sure it's a good fit, or projects if there's multiple projects for the same class. But essentially, we built the functionality so that the platform, the educator can decide whether this is individual, whether it's group, whether it's over, it's 2 weeks long, whether it's 2 semesters long. Is it 20 hours? Is it 180 hours? They get to set the parameters. They get to set the milestones. They get to set when the student reflection is done, what skills our students are going to be evaluated on. They get to create all the parameters around the program. And then we have a number of different options. And then once we actually set that up and launch the program, the employers accept to be part of that program with those parameters. And that's how it really takes off. That offers it the structure that the educator, the learner, and the employer can all follow and make sure that they have a successful experience.
The name of this podcast is Trending in Education. One of the massive trends, especially on the workforce side, is around going skills-based. You're at the leading edge. I'd love to hear a little more from you around the skills-based revolution and where are we?
Well, first of all, you mentioned the experience gap earlier. I think there's a lot of talk about the skills gap. I do think it's really important, especially right now, to talk about the experience gap, especially with AI. As organizations like ours and large organizations start to take some of the activities that are more manual, more often that would be completed by an entry-level worker or an intern, and start to automate those or augment them with AI so that their employees can focus on more strategic, higher level activities. A lot of the students are going to be depending on those types of programs. So we really need to make sure that we're getting those experiences to students earlier on throughout their education pathway. We believe that a lot of students, skills is something they need to develop, but there's a skills articulation gap. And so a big focus of ours is making sure that when companies are posting their projects, they're listing the skills. We work with Lightcast. So we use Lightcast Economy. They list their skills on our platform. They actually get extracted and pulled out from the project. We do the same thing from the educator side. That's a big part of how we do the matching. Once the matches are created, the skills are come together, and those are on the project. And then the students have the opportunity to reflect on those skills. They comment on how much they feel like they've improved in those skills. That starts to get them practicing, the act of articulating these skills to future employers. And we see major improvements in students feeling confident in articulating their skills to future employers, having the confidence that they have the skills and experience to enter into a workforce, survey them before and after. It's pretty monumental improvements.
And then you brought up AI, which is great. Thank you for that. Taking a step back, just looking at the broader employment and education landscape, the high level thoughts or drilling into specifics around how you are using the AI?
Sure. So, as a company, we as an organization, as I was mentioning, are looking at all the ways that we can, like many companies, all the ways that we can adapt our workflows to that our employees can work on more of these higher level activities. We're very excited about that. We're having an enormous amount of efficiencies gained. It's really allowing us to put our energy into what we know matters most, which is allowing us to scale the wraparound services that we provide our partners. So it's not just here's the platform and go do it. It's here's the platform. And of course, we can help you with the vetting of companies. We can help you with the design of the experience. We can help you with the selection of companies and the management and the pulse checks and making sure that the students and employers stay on track and everyone has a successful experience. In our platform, so one of the things that was super successful for us early on was we became the world's largest and fastest growing template library for these project-based experiences. Those were all available. First, we started creating our own templates, but then quickly it was just, this crowdsourced, homegrown massive ecosystem that when you're an educator and you wanted to come on and you wanted to learn I'm a psychology professor at a small liberal arts college, and I want to explore what this would look like, I get the opportunity to go onto this platform and I get to see other psychology professors, how they've run it. There's templates. I can duplicate that. I can adapt it for my own needs, and that's how I get going. Well, of course, when AI came around, we went, well, that's fantastic that we have all these templates. Let's leave that option. Well, why don't we just build a tool based off of and train it on all of our project-based experiences, everything that we've learned, all the best practices, all of the experiences, and then we'll actually use that. And so now, whether you're an employer or whether you're an educator, you can come onto our platform, you can list what you're planning to do, and it can write the experience for you, it can write the project for you, and it can start to map out what kind of matches you have. It speeds up the process, removes an enormous amount of friction. And again, if you go back to the founding story, the big barriers on both sides that stop this from happening is employers say they don't have enough time, educators say they don't have enough time. So if you can remove this kind of friction in the process, then you can bring more people on board to get involved.
And then the humans still involved, they're still tuning it, but it's just streamlined and built on.
Exactly. One more thing to say on the AI, we just launched a huge partnership with Axum Collaborative and Complete College America. Axum Collaborative is helping with the program, fund the program. Complete College America is running the program. And Riipen is the technology partner that is powering the program. We see AI as an equalizer. It's an opportunity. Yes, it's going to disrupt a lot of jobs. It's going to require a lot of reskilling and upskilling, but it's also going to open up a lot of opportunities. It's going to create new jobs. And, individuals who have AI skills are going to be able to do things that they weren't able to do before. And so this is an opportunity to help us work with some of the schools who serve learners from all backgrounds to figure out how do we get our project-based experience, work-based learning experiences, and how do we get them exposure to these AI tools, but we don't fall into the trap of an AI divide. This can only be the equalizer. This can only be the powerful tool for social economic mobility if we can ensure that everyone has access.
That's great. And it's also one of the other problems that's out there. You mentioned skills articulation. The half-life of skills is shortening, like the durability, aside from some of these collaborative skills, but, real experiential learning, project-based learning in more technical jobs. I'd love to hear a little more about how, in some ways, the private sector is pushing post-secondary education to move faster. And in a space like AI, what are you learning about AI literacy? What are you learning about the skills articulation? It does seem like AI can help, but it also can address the AI gap that can be emerging at the same time.
Exactly. Making sure that students have access to the tools is critically important. Making sure that we are preparing higher education institutions and faculty members. Really, it's higher education is in the best position to make sure that we use AI ethically and responsibly. And so making sure that we take that opportunity in higher ed to offer that kind of training and offer that kind of content to our students to make sure that they're set up for success is incredibly important.
The speed with which skills are disrupted and new needs emerge on the business side, lots of times higher ed is kind of stuck in a little more rigid models.
Yeah.
And it seems like your platform helps wake them up and perhaps accelerate. They have to articulate the skills and do the mapping and have the structure, but then also, industry is kind of pushing them because they're like, I need these types of AI literacy skills. In some ways, it seems like the data on your platform will surface emergent needs around skills and then push higher ed and educators to kind of structure their curriculum accordingly.
Yeah. I mean, from day one, I talked a little bit about the feedback loop and helping keep curriculum relevant. We've seen that right from day one when we first started this. And we have simple examples of very, very early days where we would work with a faculty member. They ran a marketing project, and then all of a sudden they ran it with 10 companies, and the 10 companies came back and said, look, like, you got to remove the print. Why are students trying to put print in my marketing plan? And this is the kind of aha moment that goes, oh, okay, I got to adapt my curriculum. I got to, this is years ago, obviously. That continues to happen over and over again. It's happening more rapidly. I think one of the things that's really interesting that you're getting at is that companies are typically coming to us with innovation projects. So one of the things that we are pushing them on is, don't come here if you've got a mission critical project. If you have a mission critical project, then you need to hire someone for that. This is a place for authentic learning. This is a co-learning experience. You're going to be able to share in the learning with the students. These are innovation projects. And so, as you can probably guess, the projects that are coming on, the way that we're extracting the skills from that is kind of a canary in the coal mine of where things are going. So we very recently had a huge increase in data analytics, and we had a huge increase in cybersecurity. Now we're having not unsurprisingly, huge increase in AI. And so, employers, I don't think a lot of these employers have, to be perfectly honest, have totally figured out what and how they want to use AI. But they're just excited to be working with students and say, let's figure this out together. It's a great learning experience for the learners. It's a great opportunity for the employers. It's a shared learning experience. And I think some of our partnerships are really excited about understanding is how, again, going back to how these AI skills getting into the employer, creating new jobs, having now the talent to fill those jobs, how much that is actually increasing productivity, industrial productivity, how much that's increasing efficiency, how much, these higher education institutions can be seen, again, as these organizations that are making this dual impact, an impact on the learner, but also an impact on their community and an impact on the economy.
We touched a little bit on Gen Z. Generational zeitgeist is something I like to talk about, and like it's been like a pretty hot topic in a lot of different ways over the years. Gen Z's getting beat up in some ways in the perception of them, which I imagine you kind of have your finger on the pulse of where they're at and how they're perceived on the employer side, and then how they're getting equipped or not equipped to be effective in the workplace on the other side. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we see an enormous amount of extremely eager, talented, hungry students. I do think one of the challenges that we face, I don't think this is necessarily a new challenge, but perhaps it's becoming more prevalent. We're certainly noticing it, is that students, when they get entered into this program, one of the biggest challenges we might run into is not knowing how to start. And not for a lack of talent, not for a lack of eagerness. It's, so many of these students have been going through a system where they wait to be told what to do. They wait for their faculty member to tell them what to do. They wait for their faculty to tell them this is the right, the right answer. You got to do it this way. All of a sudden you're thrown into a project. There is no right answer.
Right.
That's part of the experience, is actually making mistakes, taking chances, taking risks, learning from those, working in groups, conflict negotiation, resolution, having that kind of experience, collecting feedback, iterating on that feedback and presenting back. Those are the kinds of things that you're doing in the workforce. And so we've been exploring a lot of how we, use pulse checks, and how we even starting to look at AI companions to make sure that we can set students up to make sure that they're taking that first step, that they don't feel nervous about the first step. That's already starting to have a big impact.
Yeah. Company's called Riipen with 2 I's. We'll include a link to Riipen on the website. I'm talking to Dana Stephenson, who's the co-founder and CEO of Riipen. Amazing journey. Many of our listeners might be interested in a career in ed tech. They might be interested in entrepreneurship, maybe founding something. You also are, kind of in the mission aligned startup space. Any advice, any suggestions, anything you think you've learned from your journey that might be helpful to folks out there?
Yeah. So I think if you're interested in entrepreneurship, I always look back at this, and I always wish I took the leap earlier. If you're excited about this, especially earlier on in your life, when you don't have maybe as much commitment. I was 22, and we kept kind of pushing it off. We finally decided in 2015 that we would quit our jobs and we'd give it 4 months. By the end of those 4 months, we signed our first school, and the rest is history. And so my recommendation would be, just do it. Just take a chance. Really, really get out there. But also, if you're really thinking about getting an entrepreneurship, you're interested in getting into the space, follow great companies, that are in this space, go do some work with these organizations. There's some really awesome opportunities that will help you flesh out some amazing ideas, and then you can start your company out on the other side of that.
And it does seem like being more entrepreneurial, getting exposed to those types of projects, that type of thinking early is something that I imagine you get a window in through your platform and through the work that's done there.
Absolutely. And quick plug for us, we're always growing. We have this philosophy of we don't just like to hire people and fit them into a box. We like to find amazing people, and we're building an amazing company around incredible people. So we're always interested in meeting folks who are passionate about this space.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about a lot. We talked about your platform origin story, your story. We talked about entrepreneurship, skills, revolution that's happening, the three-party platform situation you have with employers and educators and learners, what's in it for all of them, a little bit of talk of AI, skills articulation. Covered a lot. Any final takeaways? Anything you want to leave our viewers and listeners with as we wrap up here?
Well, I think just coming back to the points around AI, I think we've all heard the saying AI won't take your job, but someone who can use AI better than you might. We've also seen the stats that 70% of business leaders would rather hire someone with AI skills, with less experience with AI skills than someone with more experience without those skills. So I think it's incredibly important that we really, as a community in higher ed, start to explore how we can bring in AI skills into the curriculum, ethically and responsibly. You're not going to learn AI from reading a textbook. You've got to get out there and practice.
Mm-hmm.
The combination of bringing project-based learning and AI together, it has this amazing impact on the learner, but it also can have this huge, amazing impact, and we're seeing it every single day on the employers. We want to create more opportunities, more jobs out there for our students, get our students working with these small businesses, help these small businesses grow. These businesses will create more jobs that will improve the economy, and there'll be more jobs and more offerings available to students. The flywheel really takes off. So I think there's a major solution here, given what's coming.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just building on that, within higher ed, there is sort of this ambivalence around, can we use AI? Is it okay? What are our policies? It almost seems like your approach kind of releases learners and even educators from some of those binds.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. What we're often seeing is that the faculty members really want to focus on theoretical side of things, and they get to continue teaching, but they get to work with an employer and create sort of a co-learning experience with the employer, or almost co-teach the students, but really offer that over to the employer. And to your point, it's sort of a release. Take the AI skills, go iterate, go make mistakes, go learn from them. All that really matters in work integrated learning is that you're reflecting on that experience. And even if you've made mistakes, if you've learned from them, you'll be better off the next time.
Amazing stuff here today with Dana Stephenson, who's the co-founder and CEO of Riipen. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it.
And for our listeners, this is Trending in Ed. We're coming at you from South by Southwest EDU. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back again soon.